Hello, and welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast, brought to you by the Malphurs Group team, where each week we tackle important, actionable topics to help churches thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Scott Ball and AJ Matthew.
Welcome. We are trying out some brand new technology. AJ, how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, if we start getting notices that nobody can see or hear us, then
we'll know.
I won't be happy about it. Otherwise, I'm super excited because I love new technology, especially when we can do cool stuff.
100%. So listen, we've got a great topic for you today. We've never done this live before. This is new territory for us. We've done TMG lives, but we've never done the podcast live before, and so we're excited to be doing this. Jim, we see you. Glad that you're on here. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so the topic today, AJ, is leading through lockdown. Nathan says, by the way, that he can see and hear us, which is
all right. Good,
which is wonderful.
So hopefully, me and my honey apiary will be able to catch up with the feed here in a moment because they said nothing was happening.
Okay.
I'm trying to see us live myself, and I don't know. I'm going to have to just trust that it's out there somewhere.
It's
if
out
somebody
there. We've got a couple of people telling us that we're here and that we're live, and that is good enough for me. So let's hop straight into the topic. We're talking about leading through lockdown, and we've identified really three things, just as we've been watching sort of pastor friends of ours that we are connected to through the Malphurs Group. And we've started church leader huddles, which are completely free. It's once a week Zoom meetings with other pastors who are usually it's pastors who are in your same time zone. And if you've not joined a church leader huddle yet, you can go to malphursgroup.com/huddles. And there's a sign-up form there, and we'll get you plugged into one. We've got a handful tomorrow, correct, AJ? And then Wednesday, Thursday?
Tomorrow, yeah. Tomorrow, I believe, I want to say 2 p.m. Eastern. Don't hold me to that. Yeah. But what do we have an easy URL? Yes, we do.
I just said it.
malphursgroup.com/huddles. You just said it?
Yeah, you weren't paying attention.
I'm not paying attention to you. I got other things
AJ.
going on here.
Appreciate that. But just in light of what we're hearing from those huddles already and then what we're seeing online, we thought we would bring you 3 actionable things that you need to do right now to help you lead through lockdown. So, and everybody's state is different. Like I realize I say leading through lockdown and what that looks like in Ohio versus California versus Texas versus Tennessee. It's all different because different states have different mandates. So contextualize these actions to the rules of your state.
And this is really just getting started. I mean, we don't know how long this is going to go on. I mean, our 3 things today are just sort of a getting started point. We're not going through an exhaustive list of everything that you should be doing. But I think these are 3 really good things to kind of get your church really moving forward in this present state that we're in.
All right, so let's just hop straight into that. AJ, look, I have a really cool thing. I think I can do an overlay. You ready for this?
Okay. I want to see it.
Point number 1. Here's the very first thing that you should do. Divide the flock. Now, that doesn't sound good. Like that sounds like a negative thing. We're not saying be divisive with the flock. We're saying to divide the flock. Now that's going to look, I think, different to different churches, depending on what their, the polity is and the church structure that they have. But what we mean by this, AJ, is that you should. I've seen way too many pastors who are putting this whole thing on their shoulders and going, I've got to be the savior in this moment. Everybody's looking to me in this crisis to lead, and so I've got to be the end-all, be-all shepherd, everyone understands that Jesus is the true shepherd here, but I've got to be the end-all, be-all under-shepherd, under Jesus, for my church, and the thing is, you can't be. You can't be. So the very first thing you need to do, if you haven't already, is think through how to divide the flock. So, AJ, let's talk a little about sort of the lowest hanging fruit on that, and then some of the challenges that we're seeing as well.
Yeah. So, and let's go ahead and just sort of clarify a little bit. We're really talking about dividing up leadership of the flock. So,
Right.
you're not dividing your church, but what you need to do is make sure that you've got other leaders coming alongside you to help manage this crazy time. And this will look different depending on the size of your church already and the present leadership that you have staff-wise and or whether you have elders, deacons, and some kind of a council or anything. It's going to look different for your church than it will be for somebody else's church. But the point here, as Scott was saying, is to not think that you need to take all this on yourself. So, and we've got there's several scriptural points here that I think are worth mentioning. So, first of all, the one that always comes to mind for me is Exodus 18, and then in verse 17, where Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, comes to him. Moses is sitting in as judge over the people of Israel, and he's like, dude, you're going to burn yourself out doing this. You can't do that. Divide them up into thousands and hundreds and fifties and tens, and put people over them that can handle those things for them. This was sitting in judgment of disputes, but I think this principle is obviously very sound across the church and, of course, the business world as well. We do this constantly. We have leadership that handles smaller groups. So that's definitely one of the first points. And I think going along with this, Scott, also is, right back in Acts chapter 6 as well, the necessity that the 12 had of bringing on other leaders that could help take care of people.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of where we see the introduction of the function of deacon in the church, which of course then will also lead you into 1 Timothy 3:8 to look at qualifications for deacons and such. We don't need to get into the details of all that. But all that is the big setup here for setting people up to handle the care and the needs of your flock in smaller groups and smaller numbers. It's going to just make the work easier for everybody.
Yeah, so the very first thing, the obvious thing that you're already probably going to do is to think about small group leaders, like small group leaders taking more ownership of leading their groups and taking care of pastoral care. Now, here's the challenge. Some churches, and this could apply to Sunday school as well, right? You might have Sunday school classes. Mm-hmm. The challenge is twofold. One, sometimes you have folks who are leading Sunday school classes, that have 40 people in them or 30 people in them, and that's still too many for one person to really oversee, probably. And two, some churches, you got a lot of folks who aren't involved in a group or a class. So if you've got maybe 150 people or 200 people or 1,000 people who call your church home, but only, say, out of that 150, only 100 are in a group, or only 75 are in a group. If you just rely on your groups, that means there are 75 people who call your church home that, aren't getting looked after, aren't getting that care. And so you've really got to take that macro view, AJ, of your entire roster and go, all right, who is the shepherd for every single person? Start with the low-hanging fruit, which is, small group leaders are this, sort of the under shepherd for their group. Great. Check. Those people are done. Oh, I shouldn't touch my tongue. My bad. Coronavirus. I can't.
You're already quarantined. It's fine.
But for those, you need to be aware, like, who doesn't have a small group leader or a Sunday school teacher who can be that primary contact person. Your role as the pastor is to oversee the whole operation. If you see yourself as the chief caregiver for every person in your church, you're going to have a real problem real fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so what are some ideas then, Scott, for the people that aren't connected? First of all, you're going to, you might be able to go through and, section out, hopefully you may be using some kind of a database, church management system, or at least a spreadsheet or a spiral notebook. I don't know, to keep up with who goes to your church. If they're not in a group, then probably going to need to, put them into, tens, and have somebody that can come alongside them. But who's going to lead that now? So, this really raises another point. Who are these leaders going to be? So hopefully you've at least got your finger on the pulse of some other people in your church that could rise to the occasion in this case, and at least be able to manage just really basic things, and just hear from people, be able to take in their needs and concerns right now, be able to be somebody that they can talk to, but also somebody then that could maybe pass on to you and to others just what these needs are, so that they can get distributed through appropriate channels to be able to take care of them as best you can. But also going back out from you as a communications pipeline, because a lot of people are also just not connected into a lot of things that we're used to. And especially maybe some older members of your congregation, maybe they're not on Facebook or Instagram or whatever you're doing. And they're just maybe they're going to need a phone call. So there's going to be a need for people that can just dial a phone also and just get some information out to them. So it's a two-way street here on dividing up the flock.
That's right. So I want to be really clear here. The key point is to divide the flock. Have a plan to divide the flock. So don't just say, well, yeah, we're kind of already doing that, and just assume that people are taken care of. Be sure if you use whatever church management software you have, or if you've got an old directory, like a printed directory still, go through and just make sure, okay, look at every single person. Who is the shepherd? Who's the primary care point person? And you might have to deputize some folks. Deputize your deacons. We've worked with a lot of churches where the deacons have been sort of a do-nothing board for a long time. Now they got an opportunity to rise to the occasion, right? And really take over and help the shepherding of individual people. So be sure that every person has a shepherd. Every person has a shepherd. If you just, all right, who is that? And it can't be you, pastor. You can't be the chief. You can't be the point person for everybody. So I'm interested in those of you who are watching live right now. Chime in. Like, who have you deputized so far to help you with care? Or is this something that you guys have not done yet? So we'd love to hear from you. Or if you have a question on this topic, go ahead and submit that now, and we'll circle back to it. All right, number 2, AJ, the second thing that we need to do. So number 1 is divide the flock. Number 2 is sort of a follow-up to that, and that is visible.
Be visible. There you go.
So what does that mean to be visible?
Yeah, well, what really came to mind first for me thinking through these topics and hitting on this point over the last several days, a particular friend of mine, a pastor that I've known for a long time, and I don't see him on Facebook a whole lot. I mean, every now and then, but every day now since, sort of the offline, online church has happened, he's been visible. And I've just really appreciated that, and it just struck me. So maybe you watching today, you don't spend a lot of time. Maybe you spend a lot of time on Facebook, but people don't know you're spending a lot of time on Facebook. You're just lurking around and kind of keeping your finger on what's going on. But show your face, and so typing something out, posting something is good. Videos way better. So, I mean, just be there. It only takes a few seconds or a minute to just, use your phone or whatever technology you have. You can record something for your people, just so that they can keep seeing you and knowing that you're there. A lot of times that just goes a long way with people, especially in kind of a tense or, crisis, you could say crisis situation, just a high anxiety and fear situation. Just seeing that familiar face, especially of somebody that they hold up as someone to follow and hear from and listen to, then that's just a point of comfort that you can provide. And so, of course, you can build your people up that way. You can help quench their fears. And it's just a great way for you to really be the leader that your people need you to be during this time. Yeah.
I'm adding, okay, Nathan, I just broadcast your comment. I've never done this before. So Nathan, he says he's deputized his deacons, his elders, his staff, and his ministry team leaders, which is fantastic. So on this point number 2, be visible, Nathan, what we would encourage is make all of those people visible to the groups that they shepherd. So, if you've got your if you've got groups or ministry team leaders and you've got individual like private Facebook groups set up for those folks, have them go live in those groups. Maybe it's not something that's on the internet. Maybe it's just text messages or little video messages. Now, I don't know about, I'm a iPhone user. I don't know about Android, but you can send little video messages and little audio messages to folks. Be visible in those people's lives and do that in more than just you as the pastor, although you should be visible as well. But those people that you've deputized, Nathan, have them be visible so that people don't, like if you're the only person, you're posting something every day or every couple of days and, just a short little clip or a little live, and those things are good. But if they only see you, who do you think they're going to think is going to take care of them when they have a crisis? You. So the more you make other folks, the other leaders in your church, visible, and those people that you have deputized, and you're giving them a platform to say, hey, look, we're here to serve you, we're here to help you. It sort of diverts some of that attention away from just you as the pastor, as the central caregiver for your entire church. Other thoughts on this, AJ, on being visible?
Yeah, well, I love this, and maybe those folks. I'm thinking through this kind of on the fly now. Having a lot of people deputized, but if you don't provide the structure for who should they be caring for, then I'm not sure you're going to get the full use out of them. So and I don't know. I'm not saying that's not that's what Nathan is doing or not doing, but just in general for people listening. So put some structure with it, and then those folks. I think we're probably assuming Facebook is probably like the chief place that people are really connecting right now. That's not true across all generations, but it's probably the largest used tool would be my expectation. I don't know if you're listening and you think, I don't know, then comment and let us know maybe what else you're seeing that is being pretty widely used. There's a lot of social media platforms out there, but Facebook is such an integrated piece into a lot of people's lives. So your deputized leadership team now can friend the people maybe that have been assigned into their care so that they can connect more directly and have that visibility as well. But or at least make those folks known, yourself.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and I think we're going to talk more about this next week, just to kind of peek ahead slightly. Our plan next week, and hopefully we can shoot for Monday again, AJ, will be to talk about running remote small groups. So that's another way to provide visibility to some of your other leaders, is to use some of those group conferencing platforms like Zoom, and we'll talk about that and some other options that are out there. But using, putting those folks in charge of those things and making them visible through those. And we'll talk in more detail next week on how to run remote small groups well and how to do that really well. That's something that AJ and I are really passionate, and I think everybody's learning this on the fly. So we are quickly gathering as much information as we can to develop some sort of set of best practices. Anybody who's telling you right now, here are the best practices, it's their best guess at best practices, right? Like no one's really done this before. So we're all figuring it out together, but we want to be a resource for you in that. So, all right. So point number 1 was divide the flock. And so Nathan had another follow-up. There's more than Nathan out there, by the way. But Nathan, thank you for being our chief commenter. He's saying it's really overwhelming, and it is overwhelming. But the way to make it less overwhelming, like everything else that we encourage at the Malphurs Group, is to just take it one bite at a time. So that's why we say, like, map out who is in charge of which people. If you think, oh, I've got 150 people at my church, how am I going to care for all these folks? And you're overwhelmed by that. Go, okay, no, I don't have 150 folks. I have 15 groups of 10. Okay, so who are the 15 people that I'm going to sort of deputize and oversee a group of 10? If you can think of it that way, it's less overwhelming. And then you think, all right, I got these 15 people. How can I make them visible? That's point number 2. How can I make them visible to those people? They don't have to be visible to everybody, but they should be visible to the people that they're caring for. How can I give them a platform? How can I spotlight them? And just think through that. If you develop a plan, sort of bite size at a time, it's hopefully a little less overwhelming. Okay, I'm interested to see what people think about point number 3 that we have here, AJ.
Yeah.
But it's this. Point number 3 is elevate your caregivers. And let me kind of clarify what I mean by this. Elevate your caregivers. Right now in your church, if you have sort of a death in the church, or there's a birth in the church, or there's someone gets sick, or there's a thing, like already you know that there are people, they're always the ones that step up and say, I'm going to put a meal train together. I'm going to rally these folks. I'm going to get this thing done. And they're those sort of doers that have that spiritual gift of hospitality and service. And they just think in terms of helping people and the logistics of helping people. I've seen a lot of pastors right now who are saying, my congregation needs me right now for a skill set that is not my primary skill set.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk all the time about how seminary trains you to be, a preacher, and we're helping to fill in the gaps in some respects and helping pastors to become leaders. But this is even a whole nother level than that, AJ. It's sort of the planning and logistics of caring for, like, delivering groceries to people who really should not get out. If someone in your, I saw a report from Italy, AJ, for families, like a person went to the hospital because of COVID-19 and their pet is not getting taken care of because they're in the hospital. But then these people are under like house, you can't leave your house, so even neighbors can't help the pets. It's insane. So thinking through those things, and you have people in your church right now, and often, and I'm not trying to be sexist at all, but oftentimes they're women, AJ. They know how to organize these things. They know how to get these people together, and you should lean on them. Be humble enough to ask for their help. That was a really long intro to this topic. But,
well, that pet thing, I hadn't even thought of that. So, I mean, golly, you've got some dog and cat people as well that they would love to be going over and feeding people's pets and everything. So, yeah, I think this is a great opportunity to really let people rise to this occasion in a way that God has gifted them. And they can just shine and really fill an integral role that the church really needs right now. And I bet everybody listening is like, oh yeah, I can think of 3 people right off the top of my head. I mean, we all know them, all of us involved in a church, we could all think of that person that is the one that we know, at least in our group. I mean, those people might not know everybody, and it depends on the size of your church. But be asking your people, ask your Sunday school teachers or your existing small group leaders, who are these folks? And just have them ready to go. Be awesome to pair them up with these other leaders that have been deputized, because they may or may not be equipped in this skill set either. So, that would make a nice little ministry team right there. This compassionate, logistical minded person, along with a leader that is a good communicator and knowledgeable in the word and really, can be a pastor deputy. So that would be a really cool little ministry pair to have on tap, ready to roll.
That's right. So you need to be thinking outside the box. Be thinking outside the boundaries of what your church might typically elevate in terms of a leader, because the skill set's different. And hopefully this shouldn't stretch your theological boundaries too much, right? Like we're all keeping. This is not a teaching thing, right? You're looking for people who can help organize around needs. Yeah. So hopefully that is something that every church can rally around and say, okay, let's find the best person for this job, and it's an all hands on deck situation right now.
Absolutely.
In our church.
There's no room here for I don't think there's any room here for anybody to push back on this whatsoever. We are talking about the body of Christ being the body of Christ to itself. And we are talking about employing the gifts that God has given these people, and get on it, pastors. Yeah. Let's do this, because the need is there.
So there's there's sort of a thread that was visibly there, AJ, but I don't know that I had sort of seen that thread until just now, which is the way to lead through the lockdown is to empower other leaders to lead with you through the lockdown. I know the urgent need last week and into the week before sort of Thursday, Friday, the week before, was how do we transition really quickly our services to online? We're kind of making an assumption that at this point you have figured out what you're going to do. And I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way. I see people who were like, don't film it from your church because, that's out of touch or whatever, or, you should do it from your living room or you should do it this way. I really don't think it matters. You just do what you can do, and it doesn't really matter. Like, people are going to be with you because they love you and they care about you, and everyone knows that we're all in this thing together. So whether you broadcast from your church or you pre-record something or it's you in your PJs in your living room, it doesn't matter. And we are assuming at this point that you have figured that part out. What's new and different right now is how do we actually lead in this moment? And the only way for you to survive this from a leadership perspective is for you to activate those folks in your church who have leadership gifts. Here's the good news. If they're following the rules, and unless they're like a doctor or a handful of other things, they are home. So they are to some extent available to help you. No one is traveling right now. No one's on vacation right now. Their spring breaks got canceled. So you have people who are available to help you. So let's recap, AJ. Number one, what's action number one that we should be doing?
Divide the flock. And by that, it was divide up your flock into smaller leadership areas so that you can have folks alongside you helping to lead.
Yes. All right. What is action number two?
Number two is be visible. You and this newly deputized team, make sure that you are out there just letting your people know that they are prayed for, that they're thought of, that you are there. Just as, our Father in heaven is there, still on his throne through all this mess, so are you there still for them.
What's number three?
Number three, I feel like I'm taking a quiz here. Number three, elevate your caregivers. So empower those folks and call them up off the bench, front and center, and say, now is the time. We need you and your gifting so that we can take care of each other together. And I think that's really cool. Let me jump in here, Scott, because I saw a comment, and I do want to address this. Michael had asked, what are some ways that our children and children's leaders, ministry leaders, can help stay connected and united as well? And I just wanted to jump on that one because I've seen a lot of churches now that are doing specific children's programming online. And I think that's super awesome. So a couple things on that. One, I saw that I haven't watched the video actually, but I know the children's ministry leaders created a video, kind of like I think a sort of a children's Sunday school time that it was just pre-recorded. They didn't go live with that because they don't want it conflicting with when the adults are doing stuff and whatever. But it's a video you can just show. You can watch it with your kids, and it would maybe be as if they were there in children's church or children's Sunday school. And another idea also was even some of the craft activities. I know some churches are thinking, what do people have around the house that we can figure out things that they can do just to, those interactive things that we would be doing with the little kids anyway. Makes me think of Apollo 13 when they dumped out all the junk that they knew that they had.
This is what we got. How do we build it? Yeah.
This is what we have to work with. We got 3 popsicle sticks, a pipe cleaner, and some glue.
How do we land this thing? Yeah.
So I think those are really cool things, though. But, man, I just love that. The church doing something specifically for the kids. And, kids are connected as well now. So they're not going to think twice about, oh, sure, let's watch a video on YouTube. But there's Miss Amy from church, or, there's Mr. Don singing and playing his guitar like he always does. That is just going to be great stuff that'll help comfort the kids. So head that way.
A couple other things that I've seen that I can think of 3 other things, Michael, that have been great. One is a church in our area. The children's director made boxes. It's a small enough church that they were able to do this for all the families. If you're a church of 1,000 people, it'd probably be tough to do this. But a smaller church made little boxes for each family, and with like some supplies and some different little activities or crafts and wear gloves when you put them together or something, so people don't have to be worried about germs. But then they actually just drove them by each house because, again, the church was small enough that they could do this, and they just dropped off these little care packages for the kids with activities. That's a neat idea. If your church is small enough and you can handle that, without endangering anybody's health or your health, then that's one thing to do. A second thing that I saw that's really cool, actually the church that I attend, a couple of the staff members' kids taught a Sunday school lesson. They did like an object lesson with like some baking soda and soap and some other ingredients, and I don't know. It was pretty cool, and it was about the greatness of God, and they did it one way, and the explosion was kind of small, and then they added something else. So it's just the idea of bringing God into the equation, how much greater it is, and so they did. It was fun though because it was the kids doing the object lesson, which was a fun idea. And then so similar to that, Michael, just having some of your have your wife or whoever does music or one of your teachers. Our kids have loved personally people going online and showing them how to draw things, reading a story to them. My son's first grade teacher went live today just reading a story, and that meant a lot to him to be able to see her and have them read the story. So those kinds of things are ways that you can build community with the kids, because trust me, we're all looking, those of us who have, I've got a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, and we are on the hunt for things to entertain our kids. So if we see a notice from our church, hey, Pastor so-and-so is going live, and she's going to be reading a story to the kids. Join us at 1 o'clock. We'd be like, all right, kids, gather around 1 o'clock. Pull out the iPad. We're all watching Pastor so-and-so read the story because we're desperate for those kinds of activities. So anything that you do, Michael, and that your wife can do, I think will mean a lot to those families. Any other questions?
No, I mean, it would be really easy for us to get off topic at this point. So we might, I don't know, Scott, maybe we'll just plan on just kind of going live with just a Q&A outside of a regular podcast episode. But we would love to hear from you anyway on topics that you would like us to address because we got time. So we would love to do that. But I think that's probably going to be it for today so that we can wrap up this topic in episode 32 of the Church Revitalization Podcast. A little different, and thanks for joining us. We've enjoyed being here with you. You can reach us online, certainly on our Facebook page where most of you are watching right now. This video will be available to rewatch here on Facebook. It's also going to be on our YouTube channel. So just search the Malphurs Group on YouTube. Previous episodes of the Church Revitalization Podcast are there. You can as well subscribe, download, and listen to it from Spotify, Apple, and various other platforms that you enjoy listening to podcasts on. Also visit us at malphursgroup.com/32. That's 32 for this episode number, where you can get show notes for today and read more about these topics. And what else, Scott?
I was going to say that we'll have by Wednesday, if you're watching live, by Wednesday this will be posted. The audio of this will be posted along with the video and the show notes at malphursgroup.com/32. It might be faster than that, but that's the commitment, by Wednesday. And then I just wanted one shout out to anybody else who's been watching that hopped on later. malphursgroup.com/huddles. So those are free church leader huddles. If you like the idea of being able just to swap ideas with other people, other pastors who are in the trenches, sign up for a huddle. It's completely free. You don't have to worry about it costing you something. It's not a freemium thing where we're going to upsell you into something else later. That is not what's happening. It is purely just to help and to serve you. So go to malphursgroup.com/huddles. We'll get you plugged into a group. Groups are meeting this week to connect and to talk with one another and to share ideas. And I think with that, that's all we've got. We want to thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you online, and we will see you next week for another Church Revitalization Podcast live. See you next time.
Bye.